I'm Gina Bell, and I'm a storyteller. This is Jars of Arioch, Part 2, Chapter 3, I Am the Murder Now. We called an Uber to get us close to the awfully expensive restaurant that the fine doctor had chosen for us. I had Hope's diamond-studded collar on and her best black sweater. She looked so pretty. The look from the Uber driver was priceless. Here I was with a beautiful, eye-catching woman, and I was in my pajamas, robe, and slippers. The driver kept looking back at us in his rear-view mirror. We asked him to drop us a block down from the restaurant. I got into the car in my pajamas, and I got out of the car in the most beautiful dress I had ever seen. It was blood red, almost burgundy, and sexy as fuck. It was full length with slits that went up all the way past my hip bones on both legs. The dress had a plunging neckline that showed my cleavage. Black 5-inch heels with an ankle strap. I had nothing under it. I felt like sex walking. The driver looked back and did a double take. Not only was pretty Tracy tall, but in heels, I was tall as Benoit with longer legs. Benoit looked me up and down and gave me a long, soft cat whistle. I got a glimpse of myself in the reflection of the Uber driver's car as it drove past me. My hair flowed around my shoulders. The gloss of my full red lips glistened in the streetlights of New York. She took the opposite side of the street to approach the restaurant. Hope and I strutted our way. With each stride, I felt the softness of my dress flow over the olive skin on my muscular thighs. I turned heads all around me. For some reason, I wasn't cold. Ahead of us was the doctor. He was wearing a black suit and had an armful of red roses. I could see the smile in his eyes under his mask. I was not wearing one, and no one said anything to me about it.
"You are breathtaking,"
Dr. Ernie said to me as he laid the roses in my arms. We were escorted by one of the hostesses to an outdoor eating area the restaurant had set up in the back. Twinkling white lights adorned the small bungalow they had set up. It had several tables inside with people all in their best attire. I noticed Benoit off in a corner by herself. She looked away and did not notice the hostess had walked us right past the tent completely. We had our private tent set up behind everyone else. It was lovely. It even had its own private heat lamp. The hostess took my roses and sat them on the chair in the corner. Candles flickered in the moonlight on the table covered in a shiny black tablecloth. I could feel my long eyelashes touching my upper lids. They had laid a blanket down for Hope, who quickly curled up on it while keeping at least one eye on the doctor.
"I ask you," the doctor began, "would a creep go to all this trouble?"
"Maybe," I responded. The waiter opened a bottle of red wine and gave me the first sip to test it. I sipped a small amount and nodded my head yes. He poured a glass for each of us. Wine has become a new thing for me. I prefer Scotch, but I was beginning to enjoy a good wine also. Every now and then I could feel him looking at me. He tried to keep eye contact with me, but I caught him looking down several times. Who could blame him? I was never handed a menu. The waiter just began bringing us food. We started with a cheese plate. It was amazing, covered with different cheeses and meats. "This is really amazing. Thank you for doing all this," I said to Dr. Ernie.
"Well, I'm sure a woman like yourself has gone to many fancy dinners," he responded.
I find that people tend to assume way too much, Doctor."
He thought for a moment. "I can't ask you about your job, so what do you do for fun?"
"I walk around New York with my dog. We explore the city during the day and usually work at night."
"Sounds like something a spy might say."
He chuckled under his breath. I smiled at him, and he moved around in his seat looking uncomfortable. He reached for my hand and gently held 2 of my fingers. My vision began instantly. The doctor was a very unusual color. His was a hue of purple. I had only seen purple in one place before. Only one other soul had ever shown me purple, and that was Hope. His shade had swirls of black and sparks of gold. Hope was only purple. I had no idea what any of this other stuff meant. Before I could see where the vision was going, he pulled away from me.
"I'm sorry. Was that too forward of me? I apologize,"
the doctor apologetically said to me. No, it's fine," I corrected him.
"Are you kidding me? You must have seen the look on your face. It was like you went somewhere. The second I touched you, you just went somewhere. I should have asked."
"Then ask," I said to Ernie. Ernie scooted his chair closer to mine.
"May I touch your hand?"
he asked. I held his gaze and leaned my face into his. Hope's low growl began. "Shush!" I quickly said to her, and she quieted down. I slowly tilted my head and kissed the purple doctor. The vision was brighter than it had been a moment before, with more sparks of gold glistening off the black swirls that swirled around in the purple. I could see the doctor, and he was arguing with an old woman. She was sitting in a recliner with an electric blanket over her lap. I tried to walk closer to hear what they were arguing about. The room was spacious, and everything in it looked extravagant. Huge bookshelves sat up against the wall behind her. A huge Persian rug covered the floor. Out the window, I could see Central Park. Antiques surrounded me. Everything looked old and expensive, except for the old woman's recliner. It looked therapeutic, like something you'd see in a nursing home.
"What the hell are you going on about?"
The old woman was angry and frustrated. She coughed heavily after yelling at Ernie. There was another person in the room with us. I could feel it. I had never felt a human soul that was this dark. The word evil gets thrown around in our society, but evil is the only way to describe the feeling of this other person. I tried looking around, but all I could see was Ernie and this old, angry woman. For some reason, I could not turn around. My mouth went dry and then began to water. My upper lip quivered slightly. The flavor filled my mouth. This evil was delicious, like maple syrup flavored with scotch. It was divine. The flavor was followed by an extreme high. It could have been the wine, I suppose, but I doubt it. I could smell the musk from his rotten soul, and I became hungry for it. This flavor was erotic, and it filled me with desire and longing. In my vision, Dr. Ernie turned to the old woman.
"I'm telling you this because I still love you, no matter what you've done. I love you for fuck's sake."
Dr. Ernie yelled at the frail woman in front of him.
"He will kill you for this,"
he said as he pointed in my direction. I assume he was pointing at the person or thing I was feeling and tasting.
"I have to get you out of here."
"I will never leave my home,"
The old woman began in protest.
Not till I'm dead and rotting in the ground will I ever leave my home.
The purple world began to swirl around the room quickly, and as it did, I could feel the passage of time. There was a flash of black, and then I could see the same room I had been in before. The frail old woman was in her chair. Dr. Ernie walked slowly to her body. She looked like she was sleeping with her mouth open. He pulled the blanket away, and I could see that she had been dismembered. Her arms were where her legs should be, and her legs were where her arms should have been. Ernie began to wail in agony and grief. I remember wailing like that when Travis died.
What the fuck did you do? Mom! Oh my God! I tried to tell you. I should have just made you leave.
I watched while the doctor cried and then became aware that I had been gone way too long. I quickly imagined Ernie sitting and waiting for me to snap out of it. I managed to pull my consciousness away from the moment, and I realized I was still kissing the doctor. I could feel his hot breath as we feverishly kissed one another. I pulled away instinctively and looked at him. His face was red, and his mouth was still wet from our kissing. My heart was racing, and I felt incredibly aroused. You are a very loyal man, aren't you, Doc?
Give me a minute to collect myself.
He chuckled a bit. What's funny? I asked.
Oh, you make me feel like I'm 18 again. Such an odd place to meet an angel, in that dank church basement.
You're like this perfect butterfly that flew in to escape the snow. For the first time in my life, I leaned in and I kissed a man. Not to get information or because I was afraid of what he would do to me if I didn't. For the first time, I knowingly and with purpose reached in and kissed a man. It was different from the way pretty Tracy had been kissing him seconds before. It was me, and it turns out I kissed slowly and tenderly. I pulled away, and he looked at me longingly. He looked at me gently. He took his forefinger and slowly ran it up my calf to my thigh.
I've been waiting to do that all night. You're so soft, my butterfly, the young doctor said.
I had to remind myself that he wasn't talking to me. He was talking to my skin created just for him. I had to remind myself that this was something that would never really happen. This was just a moment. Isn't that all we ever really have anyway? I didn't understand the vision, but I could definitely feel the gentle soul that sat inches from me. He was kind and he was loving. More than anything, he was loyal. He was beautiful. And he is something that I can never, ever really have. He wouldn't look twice at me. He wouldn't look twice at the little flat-chested girl I really am. Sometimes, Doctor, we need to take time to just enjoy our present. Is that okay? Let's just enjoy this moment, I said to him. He leaned in and kissed me again. I felt a connection with his soul. I wanted to stay with him. I wanted to see what it's like to cuddle. I wanted to live in this skin. I knew this wasn't my destiny, but for that moment, I let myself dream. We drank more wine and ate dinner. We then took a carriage ride around Central Park. We kissed and touched each other. Hope stopped glaring at him. I did my best to try and remember every soft kiss and respectful touch. The carriage stopped, and he looked at me. He held my face in his hands.
Tracy, I do not want to take this too fast. I think you're amazing. May I see you home? The rotten soul I had felt in that room was my target, and I know that I have to find him, or it, or she, or whatever it was. That soul was dangerous, and anyone near it could be next. Ernie was somehow connected with him, but I had no idea how. Finding him was much more important than my own needs or desires. I needed to keep this relationship going. The fact I found this enjoyable was nothing more than a perk. I needed Nanny. I needed her to follow the doctor and try and find out who or what this thing was. Never before had I tasted something as divine and as dark as this spirit's flavor. Arioch told me that predators taste better, and he was right. My hunting clothes gave me confidence and more control over my visions. Each time my outer shell changes, it seems to heighten the flavors and the colors. First, my mouth goes dry, like that dry feeling you get when you almost have a car accident. I feel it as if it's cleansing my palate. Next comes the slight twitch of my upper lip, and finally my prey reveals to me their flavor. The doctor didn't taste like much to me, but that other deep, dark soul was so intoxicating, I felt a deep carnal urge for more. I left the doctor and got into my Uber. I watched him fade away out of the back window. He just stood there and watched. We turned a corner, and I was back to me. My slippers felt good, and the heels I had on had hurt my feet. The poor Uber guy kept looking back at me but didn't say anything. We pulled up, and I could see the lights on in my apartment. I took out my phone and texted Benoit. "I'm fine. Don't wait up. I'll bring home breakfast." I unblocked my number and texted Candy. I texted her just 2 words, "You alone?" with a question mark. She responded back after 5 seconds or so with just a Henry and a question mark. The next text I said, "Yes," and following that was her address. I couldn't have my scotch flavored with molasses tonight, but I knew I could still have dessert. I pulled up to Candy's condo. My heart fluttered with anticipation. Hers was a 2-story townhouse with palms and a small patio area in the front. It looked expensive. As we pulled up, I asked the driver to drop me around the corner. As I walked, I could feel the testosterone in my body building, and the ground got further away. I felt the desire to run to her. I could feel the muscles in my body reacting. Henry is in great shape. I opened the small security gate, and she opened the door. She was beautiful and smelled like she had just gotten out of the shower. She had a towel on her head and an itty-bitty pink teddy with no shoes. She reached up and ran her hands along my cheeks and back through my hair in a slow, seductive way. Her nails dragging along my scalp gave me goosebumps. She was gentle and sweet. After we made love, we cuddled together for hours. We talked and laughed. I wrapped my huge body around her tiny frame, and it felt so good. For a moment, I allowed myself to dream of staying right there with her forever. I knew she was extremely attracted to Henry. Maybe, with the right man, maybe she could change. She got up for water
and I watched her beautiful silhouette walk away from me.
Henry, can you come here quickly, please?
Candy yelled from the kitchen. I flew out of bed to find her staring out the window.
Look at that guy out there. He never does anything but stand there. He scares me, Henry. He's pretty far away, but he looks huge.
Arioch stood completely still. Fear and doubt filled my body. Was I doing something wrong by being here and enjoying my job? Candy turned and put her face against my chest.
Your heart is racing.
I bent down and kissed the top of her head.
You make me feel so safe, Henry. I'm so tired of being alone. I'm so tired of feeling scared.
Are you scared of being caught?
Why would you ask me that? Caught for what?
Let's just enjoy the night right now.
Did I do something wrong? She asked.
No, but I kind of wish you had. I reached down and kissed her. I picked her up as if she weighed nothing and took her back to the bedroom. We made love and spent hours just touching one another. We watched stupid TV and drank good wine. I had never felt more confident and cared for, loved even. As our bodies touched, I was enveloped by cotton candy. Her taste and smell oozed her flavor. I had seen her in her vision, and she didn't look at those other men the way she looked at Henry. I felt that I had something different to offer her, something special even. In reality, I was something very special. I was her perfect man. I wondered if I continued this, if she would try to kill me. Maybe this was part of her allure. It was exciting, and it felt like an awakening of sorts. Candy would forever be my first lover. Candy would always be special to me as well. Staring down into her sky-blue eyes, I couldn't imagine her in Arioch's hell. It's like falling in love with a tiger. Like I said, the relationship between predator and prey is a complicated one. On my way home from Candy's place, I ordered breakfast to be delivered for me and Benoit. I left Candy at about 7 in the morning. I felt amazing. The air smelled fresher and the sky looked bluer. I walked in to find Benoit sitting on my sofa and breakfast splayed out on my coffee table.
Finally!
Benoit yelled as I walked in the door. I told her everything that had happened the night before, including my last-minute trip to Candyland.
I did some research into the doctor while I was waiting for you.
And? I asked.
Well, his parents, they were super wealthy. They adopted him and his identical twin brother at birth, under suspicious circumstances, if you ask me. Now, looking through the files, they don't look like normal adoption papers. The couple split up early on, and the boys went to school both here in New York and in Seattle. His mother passed away in her apartment overlooking Central Park. She was 92. I could not find out how they made their money. It seems as though they both come from money. There was no autopsy, and the body was cremated shortly after her death.
That's really weird, I responded. If she died the way I saw, there would have been police reports.
What do you mean?
In the vision, she had been dismembered. I heard him say, "He will kill you for this." I have no idea what or who he is, but let me tell you this. The way that old woman was killed and displayed reminded me of something Arioch would do. The evil from the soul I couldn't see. It wasn't as bad as Arioch is, but it was close. As close as a human could get, I would imagine. This might sound crazy, but do you think he might know an Arioch?
Well, I suppose if you know him and Nanny's whole family knows him, then it would make sense that others might know him too. Maybe that's why he brought you two together. You said an Arioch. Do you think there's more than one?
Fuck. I have no idea. Guess that would be a good question to ask.
Oh, yes. We need to get to work on our questions.
I could hear the theme from Psycho softly playing from my robe. It was Candy. I showed Benoit the phone. I watched the look on her face changing, and I knew I was changing too.
Hi, Candy.
I still find the change in voice slightly shocking. Henry, I called to tell you what a great time I had last night. I feel a connection with you that I've never felt before.
I bet.
Huh? She stumbled with her words a bit. I'm hoping to see you again. She sounded so sweet. It was hard for me to remember the giant black widow she really was.
If you want to date me, I have to be the only one. You understand me?
Okay, I know what you're thinking. I went a little Christian Grey on her.
That's the way I want it, and I always get what I want.
Really? Her really was soft and sweet, as if I had just told her I loved her. This chick has issues. This was what she wanted to hear. Candy wanted to be dominated. Maybe that was the big mistake her husbands had made. Maybe they had treated her too well.
I want you to call anyone you might be interested in and tell them to fuck off. Tell them you're with me now. If you don't, I'll know.
I hung up the phone in a dramatic fashion after that. Benoit gave me a look as if she couldn't believe the words coming out of my mouth.
This whole thing is crazy, Tracy. I just can't get over it. And by the way,
my mother would like to meet you. I thought maybe we could plan a trip to New Orleans. Just me and you. What do you think? She asked. I think that sounds amazing. I'm going to Gatlinburg right after the first of the year for a visit. We hope that Hope will get pregnant while I'm there. Apparently Raven found a male with some similar qualities. This is the first time a male has shown any real promise at all. She wants to mate them before I get her fixed. This will be her second litter. So far, her first litter showed nothing special. Just super cute little blue pitties. Huh, Hope? No sages, though. I need to call Nanny and get her on this right away. I texted Kai and told her to go up there and help me explain all this to her. Her hearing is so bad now. I can't leave that monster out there and go on vacation. I need to find this guy as quickly as possible and at least connect with him so I can put a jar out. I have no idea what Arioch will pay for this, but I have a feeling it's going to be big. I would love to take that kind of money back to Gatlinburg, get Nanny and those babies out of that old trailer. As we sat there, my phone continued to buzz with texts from Candy, or whatever her name really is. Pictures of text after text of her telling men to fuck off. At 23, the text finally stopped. "You're welcome," I said under my breath to her prey.
"Oh, you got that right,"
Benoit remarked. "I love you to pieces, do you know that?" I said to her.
"Love you too.
So ultimately, what are you gonna do about the doctor?" Fuck. He's such a nice guy and sweet. Good kisser, too. I should introduce the two of you. If I was beautiful and not in debt up to my ass to a demon, I might entertain the thought. He is somehow connected to the thing I want more than anything right now. I wish I could explain it to you. It tastes and feels better than sex. It's like a drug. We spent the rest of the night philosophizing on what sort of questions we should ask Arioch. We dextered my room and drank coffee. Lots and lots of coffee. By the time evening rolled around, we were both pretty jacked. I knew we had to stick to questions with short answers. Here are some of the ones we decided on. Am I becoming something like you? Is there more than one of you? Where is Travis? And lastly, Can I play with my prey? I put the questions into one of the mason jars Arioch had given me. Benoit watched as the jar began to glow. She took out her phone and began videotaping. I struggled a bit with the jar as it began to heat up. I put on oven mitts and put the jar outside my door. I closed the door and then opened it again, and the jar was gone.
Now what?
Benoit asked me with a look of surprise at the speed in which he collected the jar.
We should have set up a camera outside.
Yeah, I tried that once, and it was blurry. You were right when you said he's only seen when he wants to be. Now we wait. I've never had him answer me while I was awake. I doubt I could go to sleep any time soon. We've had enough coffee to jack up a koala.
What if we waited up all night long?
Do you think he would answer us while we watch? I don't have answers for that. Frankly, I'm nervous about you being here at all right now. You've seen what he's capable of. I have a feeling that he wouldn't hurt you, but what if I'm wrong?
You've been right about everything else. Why not just tell me everything you think will happen? What's your gut telling you?
Really?
Yeah, just spill it, Tracy.
Well, I think he will answer us. He always has. I think he likes you because you hunt the same prey he does. I think everything with Arioch is about Arioch. A demon is the ultimate hedonist. If he tastes them the way I have begun to, I can understand why he hunts them and leaves others that are good alone. The good souls, they don't taste good.
Do you know why they refer to liquor as spirits?
Is this some of your Louisiana voodoo, Benoit?
Well, it's even older than that, Tracy. They used to see the effect alcohol gives you as an ingestion of the spirit in the liquor. Different liquors have different effects. Hence, the spirit of the drink.
What do I taste like? I have no idea. This is a new gift for me. Benoit put out her hand for me to hold. I took her hand and closed my eyes. I saw the same vision I had seen before. I watched her saying goodbye to her mother as she left for college. I walked with her in the blue hue. My mouth went dry and my upper lip twitched. Her flavor filled my mouth and it tasted like soil mixed with some sort of spicy seasoning and fish. It was very earthy and not a good flavor. I felt like I had a mouthful of spicy mud and catfish in my mouth. Without hesitation, I got up quickly to get a glass of scotch. I took a quick shot and flipped my head back to allow the alcohol to cleanse my palate.
No offense, Benoit, but you taste like dirt and old spicy fish. You should take it as a compliment. Ugh.
I reached for my phone to call Kai. She didn't answer, so I sent her a text to call me as soon as possible. I needed Nanny to alert with all this. I needed her to follow my doctor to find out more about the rotten soul that was with him. As soon as our rapist hit again, we needed to be able to give her a location to watch. I had been waiting for Kai to call all day. I was beginning to worry. I left the ringer on my phone and settled in with Benoit. We talked about her rapist and worked on a map to try and predict where he might hit next. We finally went to bed a little after 3:30 in the morning. The second I fell asleep, I woke up somewhere else. It was terribly foggy. I could barely see my hand in front of my face. I felt around myself for anything, but there was nothing. The fog was so thick. I felt blind. Blinding white swirled all around me, and complete silence. I felt as if I had walked through the fog for hours. Finally, I saw a speck of something off in the distance. As I walked closer, I noticed the speck of black was moving. It was small, and then I saw wings. It was a crow. Just as I got close, it flew away. I watched the bird fly away into the fog and disappear. The tiny black dot that had been the bird started as a pinpoint and then grew into a huge black hole. I walked to it and looked through. I could see a young woman in Arioch's summoning circle. This looks like the trees in a circle with an Enochian symbol in the center. She has placed mason jars at the treetop points. I heard her calling to him in the forest. The katydids sing their song in the night, and the full moon peeks through quickly moving puffy clouds. As she chants, the swirling black hole grows and moves closer to the circle. I am now standing in the center of her circle and eye to eye with her. She's pretty. She is barefoot with a simple white dress. Her black hair is in a ponytail. She locks eyes with me and the color drains from her face. I felt a pulling sensation as if my heart was a magnet and she was the metal. Her bottom lip began to quiver and she knelt to me. The mason jars began to glow. I stood close to her and she looked up at me. Out of the corner of my eye I could see the hot jar that had started to burn the circle. Whatever the substance was that she had used to make it, it was on fire. She slowly stood up and walked to me through the flames. She reached up her hands and touched my face gently. I saw the love in her eyes and felt the warmth of her hands. She leaned into me, and I bent down to her level. "I am the murder now," she whispered into my ear. I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. It was Kai. I could hear the crying as I raised the phone to my ear. Nanny was in one of her trances when her heart had stopped. I'd like to think she might have been soaring over the mountains or ocean when it happened. But I knew better. I knew where she was. She was with me in his circle when she died. I sat there in the dark and cried. Benoit heard me and came into my room. "Are you okay?" she asked softly. "Nanny's gone." I struggled to get the words out. "I was dreaming about her when it happened." I told Benoit about my dream and about what Nanny had said to me. Hope raised her head and ran into the living room. Benoit and I looked at each other and quickly followed after her. We looked out the window, and on every branch of the trees that lined my street sat the murder. Some were crows and others looked more like ravens. "Come on!" I yelled, and the three of us ran out into the night and looked up at the sea of birds. They were all quiet and unimaginably still. Each and every bird stared down at us as we stood there in our pajamas in the middle of an empty street in New York. All at once, they flew away together. The only sound you could hear was the soft flapping of their wings.